Determined women of destiny. Oh yeah, we'll be on the motivator. Come and see. Passion meets purpose every single time. Amazing women shining, letting their light climb. Stories to empower, courage to believe, courage inform, inspire. You will achieve. Women of destiny.
Hey, good people, it's your girl Yvonne, the Motivator, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Determined Women of Destiny. First, I have to thank my sponsor, Joseph Slinger, and then my partners, 520 Collective and Mr. C Live, along with Infinite Melodies. Listen, unfortunately, the United States is not commemorating World AIDS Day. And by the time you listen to this, it'll be past December 1st. But I was not going to let the day go by without saluting, celebrating, and acknowledging those who lost their battle, those who are still in the battle, and those of us that are out there in the trenches trying to give information, education, and awareness so that one day, yes, HIV will no longer be a part of anything we have to do. But until that day comes, the fight is still on. I have a fabulous woman with me. Her name is Pam Biafora, and she has been in this struggle for quite a while. She is a wonderful woman, full of life, excitement, and so funny, you know. And I fell in love with her immediately. It was like a connection, and I want to welcome her to the show. Welcome, Pam.
Well, thank you so much, Yvonne. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I am very honored to be here.
And I'm so glad to have you here because many people hear about HIV and AIDS, and it's different when you're actually talking to someone who has had to walk through that journey. So let's start with the beginning. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
Well, I was diagnosed in 1986. I was 23. I was going to be 24 that year, but I was still 23 years old when I was diagnosed in 86 with HIV.
And so from that time to now, what are some of the biggest changes that you see for the better? And what was, the immediate struggle, right? You were diagnosed and then, right?
Mm-hmm. As I said, I was 24. It was 1986. I went through, various struggles. First, you go through the. Did I just hear that right? Is this a dream? This can't be happening to me. How is this happening to me? You go through the stages of denial, head in the sand. When it got to the point of taking medications, it really hit bottom for me when I was struggling with like 15 pills a day to the point of I wanted to vomit every time I looked at them. And not taking them, going through the issues medically with if you're not adherent to the medications that they put you on, they have to find another combination drug to help you. And some of the struggles that I went through was because of being non-adherent, I was running out of options of medications because then there was no more resistance. And it affected my viral load with the virus in my system increasing to numbers out of the world and the low, CD4. Went through hospitalizations for opportunistic infections. So I could say it was a roller coaster from day one of being diagnosed. I'd say for about the first 20 years, I went through a roller coaster ride of many different emotions, adhering, not adhering, opportunistic infections, the shame, the guilt, going to mental services, not sticking with it, going back. It was a struggle mentally and emotionally.
And so, you're saying that, you had all these pills to take, and here you are young, you know, still wanting to navigate, your life as an early 20er, to a late 20er, to an early 30er. How did that impact? I know you were saying your mental stability. You had to, grab hold to that. But how did
Yes.
that impact your life as far as work, as far as dating, and as far as everything? Because
Work,
that's young. That's young to find
yes.
out that I have an illness that's going to stay with me.
You know, work was never a problem because to me, from the beginning, I didn't deal with symptoms. So it was just kind of working normally as usual because I hadn't accepted it yet. Um, Work was really the one constant in my life. I was always working. And I think maybe that was my play, my safe space because I wasn't thinking about myself and what I was going through. You go home and it's a different story. And when it came to relationships, it was for the initial part of it. I basically was, having relations using condoms and not thinking about anything. I figured as long as I have a condom, and this again was during a time where I wasn't fully informed or knowledgeable about everything to do with HIV, medications, safe practices. I was still going through a roller coaster of emotions, accepting and not accepting. It wasn't until, I probably would say late 90s. No, I would say probably, late 90s going into early 2000s. When I decided to try to meet people either through the pause site because I figured I needed to let people know I couldn't continue that way. I didn't think of going to heterosexual sites. I went to pause and looking for people, and there was no one that responded that was ever in this country or close. So that was difficult. And then eventually, I ended up meeting someone who, once we felt a connection and I felt like we would be moving forward, I finally had the nerve to say that I was HIV positive. And asked him, what he knew about it. He knew of some things, but he was interested enough in me to want to ask questions. And I even offered him the opportunity to go with me to my doctors so that he can ask any other questions that he might want answers to, or maybe he might feel comfortable with their answers over mine.
That's amazing. That is really amazing that you met someone that was that in tune, because um, a lot of my clients, as soon as they said that they were positive, the person disappeared like smoke in the wind, right?
Yeah, I had few of those.
Yeah. And I had one client that on World AIDS Day decided to speak and decided to talk. You know, she had invited the man she was seeing to this event, and she was one of the speakers. And he had no idea she was positive. And by the end of the event, you could see the look on his face like he was totally shell shocked.
Wow.
And of course, she never saw him again. And we were like, that wasn't the way to do it, right?
Talk about, that would be numbing.
But that was the only way she said that she could get the courage up, you know. So one of the biggest things with being HIV positive, from the beginning, people did not communicate, right? They didn't want people to know because of the stigma. And that's the reason why so many people became infected, because they're thinking everything's okay. And basically, you know, it's not. Women have always been the highest number of statistics of newly diagnosed cases in the United States.
Very true.
And I believe that is because of the lack of communication.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
The stigma in itself, and it took me a while to get to this point of fully, dissecting what was going on, why things are the way they are, why is stigma still, so strong and in everyone's faces. It definitely took me a while, the full understanding, getting the knowledge. Sometimes you just have to listen and not talk, and you have to see and understand. But my belief is, for stigma, it has to be addressed with making it a normal, everyday conversation. Just like any other topic you want to talk about. That's how HIV should be discussed, as a topic of conversation, openly talking about it. It's going to take courage for those who are living with HIV to open up on that conversation, but it's needed. But we also need those who are not affected by it or diagnosed with it to help the conversation along as well. So we need both sides.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. I definitely do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not HIV positive, but I've been in and out of this field since 1991. And I've lost friends, and I still have friends that are still, in the struggle. And the fact that there's still stigma, right? Someone comes to work, right? Their eyes are red, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And they say, I just came back from my doctor and I was diagnosed with cancer. Everybody rallies around this person and they're hugging and everything. And not one person asks, what type of cancer? How'd you get it? Where's it at in your body? No questions, right? And as you go along, you're called a fighter. You're acknowledged. You're celebrated. And I remember back in the early 90s when National Week of Prayer was a whole week, right? It wasn't just a couple of events. It was a Monday to Sunday. And It was a really, really big thing. And there was a pastor. His name was Apostle Lee Trollinger. I don't know where he is today. And he spoke. And this was in 1991. And I never forgot it. He said, Jesus never asked anyone, how did this happen to you? The only thing he asked was, do you want to be made whole? And that resonated with me, because the first thing we think is, oh, your sexual preference. Oh, IV drug user.
Yeah, you're being judged.
Yes, there was so much tainted blood in the beginning of this epidemic that you could have had an operation and given a blood transfusion, and 6 months later found out that you were positive. So all you did was go into the hospital.
Right.
I know myself in oh my goodness, it wasn't even 19. It was 2006. Yeah, 2006. I was rushing to the hospital. I had an appendage around my intestinal tract. And the doctor said, we don't know how you've lost 5 pints of blood, but you need 5 pints of blood, and we have to do a transfusion. I remember looking at my mother. I said, no. And my mother said, what do you mean no? I said, Ma, you know, I've worked in the HIV field. I do not trust this blood. No. I said, I was talking about my sister, ask Diane, have her tested. Ask Jamaica, that's my niece. Ask my daughter, whoever has my blood type, have them donate blood to me. I'm just not taking some okey stokey blood transfusion, right?
Yeah.
The doctor said, Miss Mann, I'm sorry. You don't have that type of time. You're literally bleeding internally. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know how to stop it. And the adhesion around your intestinal tract is suffocating it.
Wow.
You are going to lose a part of your intestinal tract. If we don't get you in surgery within the next 10 to 20 minutes, you're going to lose your life.
Oh my God.
And my mother is a praying woman, right? I remember she grabbed me around my neck. She went into prayer. She looked at that doctor and she said, take her in there. But because being in that field, and I know what happened in the beginning, because I was boots on the ground in 1991, I was so frightened. So frightened. And was tested 3 months out, 6 months out, 9 months out, 12 months out. And I started again 3 months out because I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And we still have that type of fear because, even though people donate blood and it's tested, anything could happen.
That's true. I guess there's no 100% guarantee.
It's not. But the thing that bothers me the worst is that with all of the education, because like I said, I was on boots on the ground 1991 when they came up with the ABCs, abstinence, be mindful of how many partners and always use condoms.
Yeah.
I was also on boots on the ground when they started all of these educational programs. At that time, they were called Debbies, right? And now they're called EBBIes, evidence-based interventions.
Right.
And that all happened in the 90s. And so here we are in 2025, and still women, especially women of color, are the highest rating newly diagnosed cases.
This is a combination of things, Yvonne, as far as I'm concerned. I have social media, TV, radio, whatever, commercials. They're not acknowledging enough of HIV still impacting society. Women, heterosexuals. A lot of the commercials I feel are more gay presenting, and not enough of women. Just women in general, or seeing heterosexual couples. Because when you look at that and when you talk about HIV still being out there, but showing the genders or the individuals that are not, or that are high risk than others, women being more diagnosed with HIV. Okay. Let's show that on the commercials. Let's make it known that we are still dealing with this issue. This is not gone, and you see everything more about, the PrEP, the injections, the HIV injections, but it's kind of taken away of what we're still actually dealing with. Yes, we've come a long way with medications. It's known, it's out there, but we're not giving the full picture.
And they're not playing to the room. And like you said, if women have the highest percentage of newly diagnosed cases, why is it that the commercials don't show that? Why is it that when you walk through the hospital, the advertisement doesn't show that? And that's because America still wants to point their fingers and say, see, this is a gay disease, when it never was, right? And just because your first cases were gay white men, because they weren't looking at heterosexual white women or heterosexual black women, their numbers weren't coming in as much. Do you know how many women left the hospital that was HIV positive back in the 80s?
Yeah.
And they didn't know. And the reason being is because the cord blood, and that is the umbilical cord, ooh, that word got me, is always tested. And it's tested anonymously. And so they started seeing how many women were leaving the hospital that was positive. So instead of doing it anonymously in clinics, they didn't even give you the option anymore. Oh, do you want the HIV test or not? No, it just became part of the panel.
Yeah.
Your private doctor will ask you, but if you go through a clinic, it's going to be part of the panel. And then again, that's stigma too, because most people that go to clinics and don't have private insurance are the lower income. So what you're pointing your finger at now is, oh, only low income women become HIV positive. Absolutely not. And so,
again, it's like creating more stigma.
yes,
More things to have a stigma about, and it's not helping anyone. It's not helping anyone.
And so I wanted to say in the beginning, but I want all of you to know that Pam is a spokesmodel for HIV Ends With Me.
Stops with me.
Stops with me. I'm sorry, yes. Stops with me. HIV stops with me. And she is an advocate, and I mean a fierce one, when it comes to getting out the awareness and getting out the education, right? You heard her say she was diagnosed at 23. Pam is a woman of a certain age. I ain't telling her age. I'll tell mom, but I ain't gonna tell hers.
I will be 63 next weekend, the 15th of December.
Wow. So happy birthday in advance. And we're talking 40 years she has been positive. She has that's 4 decades. So she's gone through like every medication that could have happened, that could have been prescribed. She's gone through probably every opportunistic infection that could hit her body.
Almost.
And she is here fighting as a spokesmodel, saying it stops. And it can stop, but we have to stop being quiet. I know that sex is still taboo in our country. I get that. Unlike other countries, like by the time you're in kindergarten, in France, you know the correct name of your body parts. There aren't kids in France saying that their vagina is a woo-ha or their penis is a wang-wang.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Right? When they go to the bathroom, you got to go to the bathroom. Yes, I have to urinate, or yes, I have to have a bowel movement. Not I got to do a 1, I got to do a 2, right? And so we're still under the confines of embarrassment of our bodies.
I believe, for me, I felt you have to put it this way. You have to, before you can help anybody else, you have to look within and you have to heal yourself better yourself, accept yourself, love yourself. You have to know who you are and validate yourself.
And if our girls were given that at a young age, but we can't give it to our daughters or our nieces or our cousins because we don't have it. And so HIV is an illness, but it could be prevented with women understanding their worth. Because we're the ones that are affected the most. And we need to raise our daughters to be stronger. I'm not saying, oh, I'm independent, I don't need a man or I don't need a partner. I mean stronger by, I know who I am. I know what I want. I know where I want to go. And I know that communication is the key. So we teach them to say, hey, have you been tested lately? Yeah, I've been tested. Okay, great. I have been too. Before we decide to interact intimately, how about we get tested together? And if there's
That's a good lead-in. Mm-hmm.
And you know, if there's pushback, then that means that you need to push back.
Like, what are you hiding? Why won't you do
right.
this?
Absolutely. That's the reason why they stopped giving people results on paper. Because back in the day, oh, you're negative. Folks was making copies and selling that stuff.
Get out of here, really?
Absolutely. I remember going to the bars, the gay bars, and we would do testing at night. And so you'd get off of the truck and you got a negative result. But that wasn't after your window period of 3 months. You had just had unprotected sex 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that ain't gonna show.
Right, so it's not gonna show. So it was a false sense of security back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
I have a nephew who's 33. I have a nephew that's 46. Both of them will tell you they attribute the fact that they don't have children because of the fact that their aunt sat them down, and that's me, talked to them openly about sex and was a resource for condoms and explained, don't you ever leave home without one.
Mm-hmm. My sisters were able to have those conversations with my nieces and nephews who are now grown and have their own grown kids. But back then, in the 90s was when I started to tell more of my immediate family. My mother was the only one, her being in the medical field. And my support system ever since, and still is. I'm blessed for that. But my sisters, you know, they were able to talk to my nieces and nephews, and who were already getting some of the information in school in the 90s at that time. And they were able to have the open conversations, you know, with sex, you know, being safe and so forth and so on. And with the help of my mom, giving them a little bit more information on the HIV that their sister had, was helpful as well. You know, so I was lucky enough to have someone in my corner, like my mom, who's in the medical field, help guide me to deal with and open up with my immediate family.
And I must say, your mom is the coolest mom ever. We were at an event last night, and myself and another colleague was just over there laughing and chatting when we shouldn't have been. And Mom hushed us right down. She's like, shh. We were like, oh, we're sorry. Yeah, she hushed us right down. But that was my second time meeting your mom. And she's always been so nice. and so gracious. So
Yes,
before we get out of here, I just want to make sure that everybody knows HIV is still out here. And I know it's a lot been said about, oh, I'm undetectable, right? It's undetectable. Means your viral load is low, right? And your chances of infecting someone is low also. But there's still a chance. So that doesn't mean that you should not be tested, that you should not practice safer sex methods. And if you don't know what that is, go to the CDC page. CDC.com. You can put in any illness you want, from HIV to arthritis, and it will give you a plethora of information and how you can keep yourself safe. And that's what it's all about. Keeping yourself safe, getting the information out there, wearing down the stigma, right? And so, Pam, at the age that you're at now, and you're single, how is the dating going? And how do you because I'm hoping that a woman that might be HIV positive will listen to this and have a way of how to open up that conversation.
Well, I'll tell you, let's see, with my ex, the one I talked to you about earlier, who was able to find out some more information and go with me to my doctors. It was a great relationship. Halfway, the other half was not so good. So I've been single for about close to 5 years now. I went through a period of just, mourning a relationship and, so forth and so on. But as far as looking, I keep my eyes open. I do. I keep my eyes open. I try to, even like on Facebook, I'll do the match there. I'm going to attempt speed dating. I'm waiting for my year range to come up.
Wow.
Still waiting for that to come up and try that. I've never done that. But for me, my approach is, and others may feel differently about it, before I open up about my diagnosis, to me, my life and my personal life is, I know it's like a double-sided coin here. On one aspect, when I'm looking for something intimate, I don't just throw myself out there and say, hey, I'm HIV positive. You want to talk? Right. I try to see what the person's all about, the sincerity. You want to get to know someone. That's my deal. I want to make sure that before I tell someone about myself, you have to be someone that I feel like I can trust, someone that I feel like I have a connection with, and have an interest in possibly taking this further. At that point is when I will start the conversation of me being diagnosed with HIV and that I am undetectable, and go for that conversation of, what's your understanding of it? Are you not knowledgeable about that? Would you like some information? And that's when you can bring the conversation even further. But that's how I would do it. I wouldn't just divulge it. I would see how I feel about this individual that I'm talking with, meeting with, and so forth, and then have that conversation. So that's where I'm at. I'm looking to have that conversation with someone, just have not found that person yet.
Well, Pam, I thank you for joining me today. I thank you for giving me your story and information. And listen, I need y'all to go to HIV. It stops with me, right? Or it ends with me. Say it for me again, Pam.
The website is HIV stopswithme.org.
And I want you guys, when you go to this website, get information, but also let them know how you were so impressed by this interview with Pam.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just so you know, there are wonderful spokesmodels that are still, present this year. And there will be someone that will connect with you, because we do have a variety of spokesmodels from throughout the whole New York state, different gender identities, different journeys and experiences, thoughts and feelings. And, if you don't connect with one, you might connect with the next one. So please feel free to visit to watch everyone's videos and get to learn about them. And you can always reach out to any of us.
Wonderful. Pam, thank you once again. And everybody, please remember ACE, awareness, communication, and education when it comes to HIV. If you haven't been tested, make sure you're tested, right? Make sure you know your status, and always have communication with your partner, no matter what. So until next time, good people, peace and blessings. Remember, keep doing what you're doing until what you're doing gets done.
Enough destiny.